I'm Tim, this is the 1916 Company, and welcome to Watches Today. Garrett is on the switcher this morning, and we're talking about how to build a $30,000 fully featured, fleshed out watch collection. All of that, plus I share your wrist chats today on Watches Today. Please check out my Instagram, Tim_Mosso. It is the most colorful watch page on Instagram. It's all 60-second videos and some insight into the life of Tim, including cars and squash. So check it out. I will see you there. It is the official after party to Watches Today. All right, viewers chats number one. We got some great ones. I asked, you answered. We have Richard B, who pegs the meter with his Moser Pioneer Center Second Citrus Green and his factory custom Porsche 930 Flakbau, full of Sonderwunsch customizations. That is one of a kind. We got Sam H, who opens our World Cup account with an iconic moment for Messi, timed by Rolex. Daniel and his Rolex Yachtmaster in steel and platinum. He has a sailcloth strap, by the way, on the River Royce in Lucerne, Switzerland. And we've got Jack J, who impresses with his Lange und Söhne, Lange One moon phase on the summer solstice. Basil H drives his Mercedes-Benz AMG with his Patek Philippe 5326G, annual calendar travel time, a power combo. We got Jeff S, who continues his much appreciated long-term support of the show with his platinum Onyx style meteorite sub-register, Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch caliber 321, and his newly arrived Aston Martin Vantage S Roadster. Drive it in good health. Okay, send your wrist chats to Monday Mailbag at watchestoday.com. See your wrist on this list. How to build a $30,000 watch collection. And hear me out here. That might sound awfully ambitious, but it might be more within reach than you think if you prioritize. You know what struck me recently? It's how many people are already spending luxury watch money or more on things that don't give them the longevity and the retained value of a watch. How would you like to own a real luxury watch collection for the price of things you can already and may already be affording? It's just a matter of making the choice. Well, watch collecting has a reputation for elitist exclusion and sometimes justified prohibitive expense. What amazes me is how many people from blue-collar and middle-class backgrounds are into money pit hobbies and purchases already in excess of necessity. Let's take a closer look here, starting with a Ski-Doo snowmobile for $18,000. I've known normal guys who have these things. Jet skis, also from Ski-Doo, for $22,000. Nothing is more American than a Harley-Davidson Big Twin, but starting at 23 grand, and that is starting at 23 grand. I have an uncle who comes from Louisiana, where pontoon boats are everywhere, and they are part of the cultural vernacular, if you will. But you'll need to catch a lot of crawfish to buy even a small one these days, as the prices are up there, and that's with the discount. What about a very basic all-American Airstream travel trailer? Well, you might need to live in it full-time to justify the nearly $70,000 price of their second smallest trailer. And if a $32,000 Chevrolet Bolt can serve your needs, but you choose Cowboy Couture because it's cooler, again, not because you're a laborer or you need a tow, but just because it's cooler, then, well, I built a Ford F-150, a mid-range XLT, with only a few options to establish that you're going to pay almost $30,000 more than that Bolt to look country and western. And if that sounds crazy, then brace yourself, because I actually undercut the average price of a full-size truck in America in 2026. All I'm saying is that these are common expenses that don't seem nearly as exotic as a watch collection. None of this is a criticism if you've made these purchases, but it is a reframing of the price of watches in terms of things normal people already buy every day. If you love watches and must choose between collecting them or buying some other discretionary luxury, you might already have the money to build a collection, provided it is a priority for you. Today we're going to reference all of those items I mentioned to establish a $30,000 budget for a watch collection. You could do this with $25,000, you could do this with $35,000. Some will spend far less, but let's just go with $30,000 under the assumption that you'll spend a year or two, maybe 3, to spend this money after enjoying the journey, doing some research, trying some things, learning some lessons, and eventually getting where you're going. That's pretty realistic. You don't have to spend it all at once, and most people won't. My goal today is to demonstrate essentially what you could buy should you decide to go without a vanity truck, a boat, or power sports toys. Now let's talk about some ground rules here, because we need them. We need to set some standards. I've already discussed that I don't believe anything less than 3 watches is a collection. So it's not going to be 1 watch or 2 watches. We need more than that. I also think that a truly balanced collection is slightly larger than the 3 watch bare minimum, if it's going to be well balanced. While I believe that the specific choices will always be down to the individual, I suspect most collectors prize selection, versatility, and a bit of specialization within their set. So here's what I propose. First, the anchor watch for your collection. This is the core of the collection. It's the watch you will wear most and should be the one that is most special to you. Essentially, the first one you would like to buy and the last one you would ever sell. It may be the most expensive in your collection, but it doesn't have to be. It should be something you're comfortable wearing more often than the others. So it can't be something too fragile or a watch with a very limited use case. Because everyone's favorite will be different, this watch may overlap thematically with some of the others in your set, but it's the one you love most, wear most, and again, would be least apt to part with if you hit the reset button. Think of it as your favorite jacket or a well broken in pair of blue jeans. I should also mention that the anchor could be one of any of the styles or genres that I'm going to discuss later. It doesn't have to be the Moonwatch Apollo 8. Let's just keep that. It doesn't have to be something over and above these other styles. Now, you're also probably going to want a dress watch. We're a million miles past the day when a dress watch was necessary to be taken seriously in formal attire. Postmodernism, self-conscious projections of irony, and the social ubiquity of Rolex sports watches long ago erased the need to pair formal dress with a correspondingly themed watch. We're in the era when you can wear anything with anything. Sure. However, there is a purpose here. The dress watch is the watch you own out of respect for the history of watchmaking, as prior to the 1980s, if you owned a really fine watch, it was almost never a Submariner or a Daytona or a Navitimer, something very special like a Patek Philippe 2526 or a JLC Geomatic or a Vacheron Thunderbird was probably going to be that fine watch, and it would have been a dress watch. More often than not, that was the fine watch. And in days past, it was also the default watch for many when a madman would go to his job in the 60s and wear something formal and stylish with impeccable taste. Almost like a bow tie, you opt for a dress watch because you want to, not because it's ever mandatory. Not today. Now, the sports watch. This is another type that you need to have in your collection, or should. Sometimes this means you're projecting your interests through your watch. Diving, aviation, spaceflight and aerospace, exploration, engineering, or driving. The sports watch can be compatible with any one of those. The tool style watch almost always is very specific, so buy the watch that suits your personal style. I would also say in general, sports watches are the most popular as a class. So selection here will be endless. You're going to have many, many choices from many brands at many price points. Know what qualities you value in order to avoid an endless hunt, because truly, the selection here will be endless. The vintage watch. Now let's talk about the vintage watch. That is my Snowdrop, my JLC Memovox from 1974. I wear it to Blue Oyster Cult concerts. They're like conferences. We chat in the audience in between sets. This doesn't need to be expensive. Here's the thing. It's recommended that you study extensively and use the discoveries you make to buy your vintage watch, because this is probably going to be the most specialized purchase you make. Because with vintage watches, history and condition are often the most important factors rather than what make, what model with a modern watch. And again, it does not need to be expensive. An old solid dial Bulova Accutron, one of the solid dial tuning fork watches, they cost a few $100, and it is a tried and true lifetime vintage watch purchase. For a few $100, you can probably get a 1950s manual wind Omega or a 1960s manual wind Omega. Again, for a few $100, a real mechanical watch. And something like a 70s Rado Manhattan, again, a few $100, and you're part of the vintage watch club. Be sure that the watch is complete and fully functional, because here's the problem. If the piece is exceptionally obscure or rare, or the maker is defunct and has been for decades, do some research on community forums for people who buy and sell these things to establish whether parts and service remain reasonably accessible. Finally, the cheapest watch, and this is going to be almost a disposable, expendable watch. This is your break glass watch. It should be near sacrificial. It's for times when you're traveling and want to wear two watches with two separate time zones, but you don't want to get flagged down by customs and have to answer hard questions about why you're leaving a country with two watches. You're concerned you might get mugged for an expensive watch. Well, with something like this on your wrist, it probably won't happen, and if it does, who cares? You want to wash the dog, garden, work on cars, or do manual labor with a watch on your wrist? Boom, the beater. It's something that's so cheap as to be expendable. So if it gets lost, if it gets destroyed, if it gets damaged, you just don't care. And it should be something that's fun to wear, not a penalty box. It should be like, I don't know, wearing some sort of concert t-shirt from the 90s. No, it's not acceptable in polite company, but it's a blast when you can get away with it. And this is sort of like that. You know you're on the right track if the model feels like something so entertaining that you would consider wearing it because you want to, not because you have to. Wrist shots number 2. Professor Adrian is actually competing at the World Series of Poker with his Silver Snoopy 3. Good luck, Professor. By the way, that watch on the bracelet looks awesome. A rare look for that model. Curtis A., he's one of our friends, naval aviator, a Marine. Check out his collector conversation. There he is with his birth year car, 1955 Austin Healey 100 and the Omega Speedmaster Professional. Ben 10 is back with the 1980s Breguet Classique and a strap about which I simply must know more. Darth Muppet takes those straps to the next level with Stingray leather on his Rolex Submariner. Richard S. rolls in his Land Rover with my personal favorite, the Alarm and World Time and Del Primero chronograph Zenith Pilot Doublematic. Cole is somewhere on the road with his Tudor Black Bay 39. Okay, how to build a $30,000 watch collection. Here's how I would do it. So follow me here. Let's start with the anchor, the core of your collection. No, I'm not choosing the Apollo 8, it's just a stand-in, because this seems like the kind of watch a person would wear a lot. It's ceramic, it's practical, it's a mainstream brand, it's a good size, and everyone likes the model. I'm choosing the Glashutte Original Senator Diary, and there's a great example of it in steel. I've often repeated that I believe the alarm to be the most practical and useful complication, but although I love JLC and alarms are a JLC specialty, Jaeger-LeCoultre has done very little to advance the state-of-the-art in alarm watches, which means I'm reaching for something from the Saxon Germans at Glashutte, because they have set the bar for the entire industry in this genre. Launched in 2010, the Senator Diary is an alarm that can be set to sound on any day up to 31 days in advance, and it can be set for any of the 24 hours of that day. So 8 p.m., 8 a.m., you can set it that way too. And it includes a switch to arm or disarm the alarm. Plus, the time and calendar can be changed and the alarm will adapt automatically. It's got a calendar, it's got a double-digit panorama datum, it's luminescent, it's automatic, and it's big, but it's not huge. The movement is appealing for an automatic. I mean, automatic movements are very rarely beautiful, but this one has more than its fair share of Teutonic pulchritude. It's good looking, and I'm satisfied. And it meets my expectations for a watch that originally retailed for $23,000, and that was in pre-COVID non-funny money. At 42 millimeters in steel, this is something I can wear daily. It's big but not too big, and it looks good on my wrist. It's supremely practical with automatic winding loom, the date, a virtuoso alarm system, and the size is good. It's legible. This is high horology, largely handmade from a high horology manufacturer brand that makes its own movements and even makes its own tooling. These retail used, because they're no longer made, for between about $10,000 and $12,000 in steel, so let's call this $11,000 toward my $30,000 total. Now, the dress watch. Believe it or not, this is where IWC is very high on my list. Also Garrick too. If you got a little bit more money to spend, I would go Garrick. But I prefer the Portofino to the Portuguese in most cases, and the 5101-16 is an IWC dress watch like few that you have seen. 45 millimeters, steel case, a dive-style Milanese bracelet with straight bars, manual wind, 8-day power reserve, an enormous 38 millimeter caliber that looks absolutely fantastic and is entirely IWC's. Despite its size, it wears really well, and that's the awesome Tribeca Film Festival version from 2015, so you have some selection. The Portofino with the bracelet, though, is still a dress watch, but it has a versatile sporty side that prevents it from becoming such a niche watch that I wouldn't want to wear it often. Price for the full bracelet Portofino, and this is an 8-day hand wound with complications, it's almost on an Oris level in the pre-owned market, so I'd target $6,000 and a full set for mine. Okay, we're up to 17,000 bucks, I think. Okay. Alternatively, Portugueser, reference 5445. It is the gravitational center of the Portuguese universe. Get a good look at that. It's almost impossible to tell from the picture that this is not the 1939 reference 325, the first Portuguese. Now this one was the vintage Portugueser hand wound. Launched in 2008, it is a hand wound three-hander with no date, no lume, and almost no identifiers to set it apart from the very first watch. It's almost like the Royal Oak Jumbo or Omega Speedmaster Professional. It is the true core model that defines the entire line, but also the entire brand. Now, if you want a Royal Oak Jumbo, a Steel Daytona, a Sub, a Nautilus 5811, or a Journe Chronomètre Bleu, all of which are iconic core models, you're probably out of luck unless you're rich, connected, or both. Not here. Taking a look at aftermarket prices, this watch exudes the character of Schaffhausen and the majesty of its iconic status for Oris or Baume & Mercier money even. Look at those. Those are numbers that start with a 3 in most cases. There is a legitimate IWC manufacturer movement pocket watch style inside. It's huge, it's manual wind. It is slow beat like a pocket watch with a balance that's almost the radius of the movement and that huge Jones arrow index with a woodpecker click, stop seconds, overcoil hairspring, 5-position adjustment. This is the caliber 98295 and it is a pocket watch movement, just like the original caliber 74 in the first Portugueser. Let's say I choose this Portugueser and I buy a good one for $4,000. Okay, well, $11,000 for the Glashutte, $4,000 for this. Let's go with that. That gets us up to $15,000. Let's spend a bit more, but first, some of yours on mine. Viewer wrist shots number 3. Mike M shares his 1916. Oops, sorry there. That is a Laureato. I'm very sorry about that. I think we got a little bit out of sequence, but that is a Laureato that is 1916 bought, waiting for the train. So please accept my apologies, but also my thanks for trusting our company. Neil S. continues our World Cup shadow coverage with Moser at Scotland versus Morocco. Peter W. impresses with an all-in multi-wrist celebration of Omega sports watches. Michael R. of California proves the inevitable with a wrist-mounted Royal Pop and his Rivian EV. Jason M. of Fry Ranch is back with his Nevada Grenchen with a stone dial and whiskey stacked to the rafters. Very cool. I'd like to try some of that. Guys, how to build a $30,000 watch collection continued. Now the sports watch. This, for many, will be the main event. And you may also be very disappointed to know that this one for me is easy, and I choose the Breitling Aerospace because I believe in luxury quartz. I would get the previous model, not the current 43mm Aerospace Evo, but the 42 in titanium that preceded it. This is reference E7936210. It's just a better fit on my wrist. At 10.5mm thick in titanium, this is a thin, fine, easy to wear watch that feels like a second skin. You could forget it's there. And unlike most pilot style watches, this has a significant 100-meter water resistance and a unidirectional bezel, so it's almost like a light-duty diver, and also, unlike most pilot watches, this is something a real pilot could actually use. To wit, how much functionality do we get? Analog and digital, an alarm, a countdown timer, a perpetual calendar. It has superluminova, but it also has a powered backlight, 24-hour time formatting if required, electronic minute repeater, second time zone, chronograph, and these are rare COSC certified quartz chronometers. Those are uncommon, accurate to 10 seconds per year. Remember, standard quartz is 15 seconds a month. and it is thermocompensated. I'd opt for the blue dial because why not? I like a little bit of color. I would expect to pay around $3,000 for this on a full titanium bracelet. With the GO and the Portuguese, we're now up to about $18,000. The vintage watch. Here we have quite a bit of flexibility. Now you can see the one I actually bought, and I paid $5,000 for that back in 2018. It would be a lot more now, especially after a factory restoration. Plus that model has gained momentum. So let's take a look at how we might spend this money if I don't literally just buy the thing I already have. So we've got $12,000 thereabouts to play with, and with only the expendable watch coming up after this one, let's blow it all on one piece. Guess what, guys? The 1980s were a different world and a different time. And yeah, that's now vintage. I mean, just take a look at that, guys. That is a different world. It's still cool, but it is not of our time. The 1980s is real vintage. And looking at the cultural tropes of the 80s, it was clear even in the early 2000s, when Grand Theft Auto Vice City came out in 2002, that the 80s were a distant and fading cultural time removed. Miami Vice was 42 years ago as of this year. And 42 years before that, in turn, was the Battle of Midway. So yeah, just for perspective, given those time frames, the 80s is very much vintage. And I like complications, so I'm heading back to IWC in the 1980s and the Da Vinci Perpetual Calendar Chronograph. I almost cannot believe that the landmark 3750 model, which was a huge statement piece for IWC, is still available for this kind of money. Kurt Klaus designed the programmed perpetual calendar with quickset and synchronized displays. The moon phase was aventurine glass. The chronograph was a modified 7750 adjusted in 5 positions. The shape and the design was Hanno Bürcher's work, and so were the lugs that ensure beautiful fit for this 39mm watch. This watch had a plexiglass crystal used by IWC to clear all of those stacked hands, and early examples have tritium dials, which again are very vintage, even if you don't think of the 80s that way. I'm not even sure we're going to hit our maximum number. I wanted to blow $12,000 buying this piece, but you're going to have a lot of trouble getting there. And if, by the way, if we insist on a mesh bracelet, but if we insist on a mesh bracelet here, you can pay about $12,000, and that is with a full set and all the period accessories, and it will be a great looking watch and a very cool offbeat piece that stacks complication and pedigree while being one of the pivotal watches in the history of IWC. And if you want Holy Trinity, maybe we don't just keep coming back to IWC. Let's talk about another piece that was iconic of its brand in period. Complexity with the chronograph, tantalum, co-molded rose gold, and vintage, then $12,000 can just about swing a different 80s classic, the Audemars Piguet 8ème chronograph. Available here, you can see that's from some fine folks in Germany, so hit them up if you want that. But for about $12,000, we are now into a very cool period piece from a blue chip brand. Finally, the cheapest watch. That's easy because I actually bought one of these. I got the Atlantic model of the Swatch 50 Fathom Scuba. That is the Indian Ocean version. And again, for about $400 for a mechanical watch for a real diver, that's probably going to last a decade, maybe more. That's good value. Of course, there are many great options if you just want to pay a few $100s for a fun watch that is nevertheless expendable. There is the Timex Marlin family for $200 or so, and there's a lot more options than I'm showing here, but they are there, including bracelets and complications. And a Casio G-Shock for $330. Now we're getting so much more than the bare minimum that I took a screenshot that you can pause if you wish to peruse at your leisure and count all of the different features and functions you get for a $330 sum at Casio. My point is, this will be a fun and useful watch that you may just wear because you want to, not because you have to. Viewer wrist shots number 4. Okay, Matt F. and his Spring Drive Seiko Diver SNR 43 want you to know that dive watches need not cost $22,000, one of our recent show themes. Michael M., I'm so sorry, because I think I confused you earlier with the shot of the Laureato. So I have Mike M and I have Michael M. And I believe Michael M. had the Laureato, and Mike M., who I think you're looking at right here, has his 1916 bought IWC Mark 20 and the high-protein Breakfast of Champions. So I think I've corrected the record there. James D. and his Rolex Pepsi GMT Master 2 are doing some exploring. Well, that's not a Rolex Explorer, but he's exploring the rocks at Foster Falls, Tennessee. Anthony M. of Montreal slows down with a Negroni in good taste with his Moser Heritage, whose dial almost matches the drink, with his wife on date night. And Matthew K. wins the day with a bunch of things we like. Vacation, Grand Seiko, mesh bracelet, and Daft the dog at Cape Cod. We got watches and whiskers on the water. Guys, thank you so much. Let me know in the comments below this video, how would you spend $30,000 on a watch collection? It's got to be at least 3 watches, but if you want to follow my template and use the guide I provided, break it down that way too. Thanks to Garrett, he was adroit on the switcher as ever, and thanks to you for making the best job in the world possible. Until next time, time out.